Carlos Ramirez, owner of NVS Audio in Roselle, New Jersey. We have a brand new Road Glide, and this is going to be the same on 2015 through 2022 Road Glides. You can do two Sound Digital Evo X 800.4s or Evo X2 800.4 in the fairing with no cutting. This works with the factory radio, this works with an aftermarket radio, but the amps are so tiny that if you position them just right, you do not have to use any sort of special rack, you don't have to do any cutting, and the amplifiers will be mounted solid. Check this out. So there's the first amplifier. It's going to run the mid-bass drivers in the bags. It's bridged. This is the new Evo X2 800.4, but it's physically the same size as the Evo X 800.4. So if you position the amp correctly, you can bolt it up against the factory radio bracket in the back. And since this is new Evo X2, it actually clears the fan. So there's no obstruction of the fan. Let me get a light on there for you. Okay, as you can see, the fan is unobstructed, works perfectly. And there we have a nut and bolted in place with a 632 nut and bolt. It's 1/2 inch long. You can get it from Home Depot. Amp is solid, it's not moving. Then the second amplifier, which is going to run the 4 other speakers, will fit nicely right here. Now you could use epoxy or Velcro. So we're actually going to put a piece of acrylic and bond it to the headlight, and then we're actually going to mount it down. It's more complicated doing it that way. If you use the really heavy duty Velcro, it does a good job of holding it in place. And then the RCAs sit in between the 2 wiring tabs, and it's beautiful. So there you have a potential of 1600 watts in the fairing, no cutting. The only 2 tools you're going to need to do this is a Phillips head with a long tip. That way you can reach all the way back there. And a drill bit. This one just happens to be 11/64. So you can reach in there and drill the hole. So there's that amplifier. Factory radio is going to drop in place perfectly. And as you can see, the plug clears. HKM mini DSP goes here. There's the other end of our T-harness. So that's going to go in there. Bam. Bam. Actually, this harness goes along with this harness on top. That way it clears the RCAs. So 3 1/8 by 5 3/4 ended up being the measurement for the PVC mount for the DSP. So now we're going to screw the DSP down, slide it in the pocket, and then run a screw to the top to keep it from moving around. All right, to mount the DSP to the PVC plate, we use these little 1/2 inch number 6 wood screws from Home Depot. We get our screws from Fastenal Screw Supply Company, but for my videos, I like to go to Home Depot and see if I can find something similar to make it easier for you guys to find. So now it's going to slide right in between the speaker pod and the radio. First, you have to pull the speaker pod connector off its mount right there, and then we'll be popping it back in there when we're done. So DSP slides in there perfectly, and now you're going to use this factory hole to screw it down. That way it can't move. It's in there nice and tight as it is. There's very little play, but to keep it from bouncing around, we're just gonna add a screw here and a screw here. So I need both hands for this, so I'm gonna pause the video for a second. So we cut a piece of 1/4 inch ABS. It's 1 inch by 4 inches wide. And we're gonna use our panel bond adhesive. You don't need a lot, it's just gonna hold it on there to keep it from bouncing around. Just a little panel bond on the edge. And we're gonna go ahead and let it set. Okay, now that the glue is dry, we're gonna use our short 1/2 inch wood screws, same ones we use on the DSP, to mount the amp down. So, the first one. And there's the second one. So it went just into the plastic and not into the headlight. The reason I only used a piece that's 1 inch wide is I wanted space underneath the amplifier for the fan to be able to breathe. So now the amp's mounted securely, the fan's open and able to breathe. Now we can go ahead and mount our DSP. We're using the Stinger 1.5 foot RCAs since it only has to go from here to here. So these RCAs are directional. The side with the tag needs to go on the DSP side. The side without the tag goes to the amplifier. So this is channel 1 and 2. Amplifier channel 1 and 2. Is for the woofers. So whenever we do woofers, whatever the largest driver, so whether it's 10s, 8s, here at the shop, it always goes on the last 2 channels. So the highs go on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The woofers or subwoofers always on 7 and 8, or just 8 if it's monoblock amplifier. Just makes it easier when you're tuning, so you get less confused. So here's our NVS Audio T harness for the GT and the GTS radios. It's completely plug and play into the HKI Mini DSP. Comes with the power plug already, so you plug the power plug in. The RCAs that have the Y jack are fronts, or they're going to be labeled front, so that's AB. Rears go to CD. And that's it. The DSP part of the install is done. So now we're going to slide this in. Angle it just right. It's in there nice and snug. Now I'm going to drill 2 holes into the top of the plastic to make room for our 1/4 20s. I'm going to go 15/64, and since we're using thin expanded PVC, the bolt will thread itself into the hole that we've just drilled. So it's 15/64 on the drill bit. Make sure you don't drill through the DSP. There's 2 factory holes in the bracket. We're going to be using those. Quarter 20 from Home Depot. 1/2 inch long. Thread in beautifully. This is black expanded PVC. This we get from Pro Plastics, but you can get it from Home Depot. And Home Depot it only comes in white though. Okay, DSP's in there solid. See that? Now let me get another set of RCAs and Y jack, and then we can finish this up. Okay, so here's both RCAs hooked up to the amplifier. DSP's mounted, power plug for the DSP's in. This is the DSP harness, which gets tied up with this harness here. The T harness for the radio and the DSP all get tucked on the opposite side like this. If you don't tuck these properly, the fairing will not close. So let me just grab the phone to give you a better angle. Okay, so the DSP is mounted on that side. There's our 2/4 20s. Amplifier is mounted to the ABS plate that's epoxy to the headlight. Number 6 screws. RCAs. Now we're moving quickly for the video. Obviously we're going to test tape these. I don't like seeing different colors in the fairing, so everything should be a nice sea of black. So these will get tested taped up. This is the T harness that comes off the radio, and these are the T harness plugs. All this will get tucked into here, all of it. So if you manage the wires properly, it will all fit, go neatly, and stay out of the way. It's kind of hard to do with one hand, but you get the picture. That will all tuck in there. As you can see, I'm doing it one-handed, so there's not a lot of pressure. So now there's no pressure here. That's neatly tucked away. That's neatly tucked away. This is gonna wire tied up here, and it's gonna look beautiful. Okay, I did not cut the wire ties on purpose, so you can see. There's our TR4 that's built into the harness, easily accessible. One wire tie here, one wire tie here. A nice service loop, so there's no pressure on the RCAs, but yet they're held nice and tight, firm and secure. So that's a nice, clean install, no cutting. Factory radio, DSP, NVS audio T harness for the DSP. Second amplifier mounted, first amplifier mounted under the radio. See that? It's beautiful. Everything's super serviceable. This one's ready to go back together and get tuned. So that was the first version of the way we like to do it. Some people don't feel comfortable drilling a hole in their factory radio rack, so we offer a different version. This is with our modified amplifier plate. So if you're doing one amplifier, you just put one amp on the plate, and the plate uses the factory boom audio mounting holes. And then since the plate is modified, it allows room to put the second amplifier in the headlight, and you could hold it in Velcro, so there is no cutting. This is how this one works. Using this bike, for example, because it's already all apart. So here's a Sound Digital Evox 2 on our mounting plate. And it's going to slide in the factory radio bracket. And slides all the way to the front and sits underneath the radio just like a factory boom audio amplifier. It's going to bolt in on the sides right there. Same thing on both sides. Right there. And then that allows room for a second amplifier to sit on top of the headlight, just like that. And then the radio drops in. This is a little bit different because this bike has a Lex rack, but for illustration purposes, see how the rack clears the second amplifier? So you have 2 amps under there. No cutting. I prefer this version, the first version, because it allows more space. You don't have the bracket in the way here, so you could see both amplifiers. You could see the amplifier gains. This is the way I like to do it, but some people don't feel comfortable drilling the hole and putting the bolts, so then you could do it with the mounting plate. Either way works, either way is done right, either way is solid and serviceable.